Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be making some butter chicken. This is going to be authentic butter chicken, but it is not going to be a restaurant style. It is going to be decidedly home style. So let's not waste any time. Let's jump right in. The first step for making butter chicken is going to be making the spice mix, also known as Garam Masala. So let's get started. In this bowl here, I've got 50 grams of coriander seeds, 30 grams of cumin seeds, 10 grams of green cardamom pods, 5 grams of black cardamom pods, 10 grams of cinnamon, 10 grams of black peppercorn, 5 grams of star anise, and a few bay leaves. So we're just going to go ahead, take this dry pan, put it over medium heat, and just add our spices in. Now we're just going to go ahead and let this pan heat up and dry toast these for a few minutes, around 3 or 4. Now these spices have been toasting for around 5 minutes and they have become very fragrant. So now we're going to go ahead and take them off the heat and place them into a mortar pestle and give them a cursory crush. Now that we've got our cinnamon and all the other hard spices crushed, I'm just going to go ahead and add them into a blender. Now our spices have been blended. It did not do a perfect job because this is in fact a blender and not a spice grinder. But we're just going to go ahead and pass this through a fine mesh sieve, and that is going to result us in a very smooth powder. And here we have our Garam Masala powder ready to be used as a seasoning. Now it's time to go ahead and get our marinade ready for the chicken. The start of which is going to be 1 cup of Greek yogurt. We got 3 tablespoons of lemon juice, around 3 teaspoons of salt, 3 nice teaspoons of that garam masala we just made, and finally 3 tablespoons of dried fenugreek, also known as kasuri methi. Now we're going to go ahead and whisk that up until homogeneous. Now I've got here a crap load of skinless and boneless chicken thighs that I'm going to go ahead and add into our marinade. Alright, now we're going to go ahead and mix that up and massage the marinade into the meat with your hands. And now that we've got that covered and all nice and mixed, we're going to go ahead and place that into the fridge for at least 4 hours, but preferably overnight. Okay, now it's time to go ahead and grill our chicken. Now I don't have a tandoori oven, which means I'm going to be grilling it inside of this pan, which is not traditional, but this is home style. So we're going to start by getting this pan ripping hot and adding a few tablespoons of canola oil and letting this heat up until it's very nice and hot. Now we're going to lay this chicken into the pan, and you want to hear a nice sizzle when you do it. Now we're going to let these cook for about 4 or 5 minutes per side until you have some nice color. Alright, and now the chicken has been cooking for 4 or 5 minutes on this side, and as you can see, we've got some very nice color. So we're going to go ahead and flip these and do the exact same thing on this side. Now the chicken is ready, we're just going to go ahead and remove that onto this plate and repeat with all of our chicken. Yeah, turn it off. Same with that guy. Now we're going to go ahead and make some ghee. That is what is traditionally used in Indian dishes, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with a big old brick of butter and just drop that into a stock pot. And we're going to go ahead and put this over low heat and let the butter melt nice and gently. And now once the butter is melted, you're going to notice that there's going to be this white foam rising to the top. You're going to want to go ahead and take a spoon, run it along the side of the pot. And as you can see, all that foam comes off and you're not taking all of that delicious fat with you. So now we're going to go ahead and cook this for 25 to 30 minutes until it's nice, it's nutty, it's very aromatic, and the color has darkened a little bit. And we're going to be skimming the entire time. Now the butter has browned and become darkened. And as you can see, there's the milk fat cells that have stuck to the bottom of the pot and have begun to caramelize. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and add 5 cloves of garlic just to infuse that with a little bit of flavor. We're going to go ahead and let that go for another about 2 minutes. And now that we've infused the garlic, I'm going to go ahead and strain this through cheesecloths to make sure that the butter is nice and clear. And finally, we're going to go ahead and add some finely chopped parsley, and that is going to finish our compound ghee butter. Now we're going to be making some naan bread, for which I've got my dry ingredients in this bowl right here, those being 180 grams of all-purpose flour, 90 grams of bread flour, a teaspoon of sugar, and a teaspoon of salt. Over here, I've got 140 grams of warm water, to which I've added 5 grams of yeast, and I've let that sit for a few minutes to let it bloom. Now to this water, we're going to add 70 grams of Greek yogurt and 30 grams of our cooled off ghee. Now we're going to whisk that up. Now we're going to mix up our dry ingredients and add in our yeast mixture. Now we're just going to let that run until all of the flour is incorporated and the dough can pass the window pane test, which is going to take anywhere from like 7 to 8 minutes. Now the dough has been kneading for 8 minutes. As you can see, the dough is extremely smooth and slightly sticky, but it's not wet, which is what we want. We're going to go ahead and rip off a small piece of the dough, roll it up into a ball, lightly press it in between your palms, and then pull it out and stretch it as thin as you can. As you can see, light passes through the center of the dough where it's extremely thin, but it's not tearing. This is called the window pane test, and it tells us that the gluten network has been developed sufficiently. Now we're going to place this back into the bowl and cover it with a kitchen towel and let this rise at room temperature for around 1 hour or until it's doubled. So as you can see, the dough has doubled in size. Now we're going to go ahead and take it out and place it onto a plate with a scale so that we can weigh it. So now we know that it's 500 grams and we want to divide this into 8 equal pieces, which means we're going to cut this down to 62.5 grams each. Now you don't necessarily need to measure out your dough, but I like to make it so that it's nice and even for every piece. Alright, now we're going to go ahead, form this into a disc, close it up at the bottom, and form it into a ball. And we're going to place this on the counter with your pinky and your thumb resting on the table, and then we're going to go ahead and do circles while applying pressure. What that's going to do is close up the seam at the bottom of the bun. And now we're just going to go ahead and place this and repeat with all of our dough. Now we're going to place the kitchen towel over top and let these rest for 5 minutes to make sure that the gluten is nice and relaxed for when we roll them out. Okay, now we're going to take one of these balls and make sure that the rest of them are covered so that they don't dry up. And we're going to go ahead and take a rolling pin and we are going to go ahead and roll them up. And once you've got your naan rolled out to about 7 or 8 inches like this, we're going to go ahead and get pan screaming hot, nice and dry. And once your pan is nice and hot, just go ahead and drop that in. Now we're going to cook this for about a minute or 2 on each side until you see bubbles start to rise up and there's a nice golden brown crust. Okay. And once the naan is done, I'm going to remove it onto a plate. And then take our ghee and go ahead and give it a nice generous brushing. Okay, now it's finally time to get started on our Makhani Gravy, which is the tomato sauce that we're going to be using for buttered chicken, which starts with a couple teaspoons of our ghee. Then we're going to turn the heat on and let that ghee melt nice and slowly. Now we are going to add around 4 tablespoons of ginger, rough chopped, about 1 tablespoon of garlic, as well as 10 pods of cardamom, and 10 whole dried Kashimiri chilies. And now we're going to fry this until it's extremely fragrant. And an ingredient I forgot, you also want to make sure to add a couple tablespoons of your nice Garam Masala. Alright, now that the spices are nice and very fragrant, we're going to go ahead and add 2 kilograms of quartered Roma tomatoes, and a few tablespoons of toasted cashew nuts. And now that we've got this up to a simmer, we're just going to cover it and let that go for about 10 to 15 minutes or until the tomatoes are fully cooked through. Now the sauce has been simmering and the tomatoes have completely cooked and broken down. Now we're going to go ahead and put this into the blender and process until completely smooth. Point it at the blender, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. And now that it's blended and completely smooth, we're going to go ahead and add this back into the pot. Now the tomato gravy has been simmering for about 10-15 minutes, and this fat is actually starting to separate from the top, which you can see at the top layer. This is how you know that your gravy is ready to go. So we're going to go ahead and take a big fat amount of butter and drop that in. And now while it's melting, we're going to make sure that we're constantly stirring so the butter actually gets properly emulsified into the gravy. And now that the butter has been emulsified into the broth, we're going to go ahead and add our grilled chicken that I've chopped up into bite-sized pieces. Now we're going to bring this up to a simmer and let it go for about 10 minutes until the chicken is fully cooked through and nice and tender. Now the chicken has been fully cooked through and is tender, so now we're going to go ahead and finish the sauce with some cream.
Think you spotted that?
That looks good.
So good.
Now the last step to finish up this curry is going to be to go ahead and add some freshly chopped parsley.
Look at that go.
Now we are finally at the point where we're going to plate this up. Here we've got some nice basmati rice that's just been cooked in a rice cooker. We're just going to grab some rice and put it on one side of the bowl. Then we're going to grab a few ladlefuls of our curry and drop that right on the other side. Now we're going to take one of these naans, tear it in half, and finally garnish with a little bit of chopped up parsley. And there we have it, homemade authentic butter chicken. So now all that's left to do is to go ahead and eat this. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. So let's not waste any time, let's jump right in.
What the fuck? Good one.
Holy shit.
I'm gonna put
Shadow.
first person.
Hell yeah, dude.
Oh my
I'm
god,
playing
Antoine
Minecraft.
straps a GoPro to his chest.
Don't be afraid of the meat. It's fucking dead.
It's what?
I said it's fucking dead. I'm stuck. Now to test if this dough is fully ready to go, we're just going to go ahead and rip off a little piece of the bit.
Ooh.
You're a sussy baka.
Now we're going to bring this up to a simmer and let it simmer for about simmer. So now all that's left to do is to eat this. So that's what I'm gonna do.
Wait, what?